Ryan had been alone for many days. The ship that carried him had landed on the surface of the abandoned station after detecting faint energy signals. Most travelers would never risk entering such a place, but Ryan was different. He believed every sign of life mattered, and if there was even one survivor hidden inside the endless metal halls, then he had to find them. The station looked empty from the outside. Its outer walls were dark and scarred by weapons of some past war. Entire sections were broken and drifting slowly in space. From a distance, it seemed lifeless, like a giant carcass left behind. But as Ryan moved deeper through the narrow corridors, he noticed details that told another story. Lights still flickered in some rooms. Doors opened with a faint hum when he touched the panels. The air was thin but breathable. Somewhere in this vast ruin, there was still power running. And if there was power, there could be people. Ryan carried only a small pack on his shoulder. Inside were simple tools, a scanner, a water flask, and a thin blanket folded tightly. He had no heavy weapon, no armor, and no army behind him. His strength was not in force but in his will to keep going where others turned back. Step by step, he moved forward. The silence pressed against him, broken only by the distant echo of his boots on the metal floor. At times, he thought he heard whispers or the faint sound of movement in the shadows. Each time he stopped, the noise vanished, leaving him unsure if it had been real or only his imagination. At last, he reached a wide passage that curved into a large chamber. The door was tall and shaped with strange symbols that glowed faintly in blue light. Ryan touched the side panel, and the door slid open with surprising smoothness. He expected to see another empty hall, broken furniture, and nothing more. Instead, he froze in shock. The chamber was alive. Bright crystals lined the walls, giving off a steady silver glow. The air smelled cleaner here, almost fresh. A long carpet stretched across the center of the hall, leading toward a raised platform. On that platform stood figures in armor, tall and proud, their shoulders wide and their eyes sharp behind narrow helmets. They held long weapons, and when they saw Ryan, they moved as one. The weapons rose, aimed directly at him. Ryan stopped at once, raising his hands slowly to show he carried no weapon. His heart raced, but he kept his face calm. He had learned long ago that fear could only push enemies closer to violence. Calm, even in danger, was his shield. At the center of the platform stood a figure different from the rest. She was taller, her robes flowing with silver and deep blue. A thin crown rested on her head, and her eyes, sharp yet full of authority, met his. She was not a soldier. She was something higher. A leader. The guards held their weapons steady, waiting for her command. The chamber filled with tension, heavy enough to choke the breath from his chest. The princess spoke first. Her voice was smooth but cold, carrying across the hall. The words were alien to him at first, but then his translator chip caught the meaning. You dare enter the chamber of the crown? Who are you, human, and why do you walk into my hall uninvited? Ryan lowered his hands slightly but did not move closer. His voice was steady when he replied. My name is Ryan. I came here because I thought this station was empty. I did not mean to intrude. I only followed the signal of life. I searched for survivors. The guards tightened their stance, weapons ready to fire at the smallest command. The princess narrowed her eyes, studying him with careful suspicion. No human should be here, she said. This place is forbidden. You will answer me, or you will not leave alive. Ryan understood the danger, but he also knew the truth was his only chance. He spoke clearly, every word chosen with care. I am not here as an enemy. I am not here to take or to fight. I am here to find those who still live. If there are none, I will leave. But if there are survivors, I will not walk away while they remain in danger. The princess raised her hand, and for a moment, Ryan thought the order would come and the guards would fire. His breath slowed. His body tensed. Yet something in his calm eyes seemed to give her pause. She did not lower her hand, but she did not drop it either. The silence stretched. The chamber, once glowing with life, now felt like the edge of a cliff. One step forward or one wrong word would send him falling. Ryan stayed still, his gaze fixed on her, waiting for what would come next. That was the moment when everything changed. Behind him, faint footsteps echoed down the corridor he had walked through. The sound was small, almost too soft for the armored guards to hear. But the princess heard it. Her eyes flickered past him, and in that instant her face transformed. Her voice, which had been sharp and cold, broke with something else. It was not anger. It was not command. It was shock. She whispered one word, too soft for the translator to catch, but the meaning was clear in her trembling tone. Her eyes were not on Ryan anymore. They were fixed on what she saw behind him. And as Ryan stood frozen, he felt the air shift. The guards who had been ready to end his life hesitated, confused by their leader's sudden change. Ryan did not turn yet. He held his place, waiting, as the weight of the moment grew heavier. The princess was no longer looking at him as an intruder. She was staring at something behind him with wide eyes filled with disbelief. The silence broke not with weapons but with the sound of small voices calling out. Ryan stood in the chamber, hands still raised, while the guards kept their weapons pointed at him. The silence pressed against his ears. He could hear only his own heartbeat. He did not move. He did not speak. He waited for the princess to decide his fate. Her eyes remained locked on something behind him. But after a long pause, she forced herself to look at him again. Her voice came steady, though her hands trembled just slightly at her sides. "You are human," she said. "Humans have no place here. You enter the ruins of my people as if they belong to you. Why should I allow you to live?" Ryan lowered his hands very slowly, careful not to alarm the guards. He let his arms rest at his sides and drew a slow breath before speaking. "I did not come to take anything," he said. "I came because your signal reached my ship. I believed survivors were inside. My duty is to answer when life calls. That is why I am here." The princess studied him, her gaze sharp and heavy, as if she was weighing every word. She stepped forward, the silver crown on her head catching the glow of the crystal lights. Her robe swept lightly across the floor as she descended from the platform. The guards shifted their stance but did not lower their weapons. When she reached the bottom step, she stopped only a short distance away from him. Up close, Ryan could see the details of her face. Her skin held a faint shimmer, her eyes deep and bright, not like any human's. There was strength in her, but also something hidden, pain or fear, perhaps. "You say you seek survivors," she said slowly. "Yet you are a stranger in this place. My people have fought many wars. Trust does not come easily. Tell me, human, what are you truly after?" Ryan kept his voice calm, steady, and clear. "I am after life. Nothing more. When I found the two children wandering near the wreckage, I promised I would guide them to safety. They trusted me. I brought them here." The words slipped out before he had time to measure them. He had not meant to reveal the children so soon, but he felt truth was stronger than silence. At once the princess's face shifted. The guards looked at one another with sudden unease. Ryan could sense the weight of what he had spoken. He had touched something deeper than a simple matter of trust. The princess's eyes narrowed, yet her voice broke with emotion as she asked, "Children? You speak of children?" Ryan nodded. "Yes. They live. They walk this station even now. I did not leave them behind. They are here." For a moment, the chamber filled with whispers as the guards muttered among themselves. Some looked uneasy. Others looked doubtful. But all seemed shaken by his words. The princess raised her hand, and the whispers ended. The chamber fell silent once more. Her eyes bore into him. "If you speak truth, then you carry something more precious than you know. If you speak lies, then you play with fire that will burn you alive." Ryan's answer was simple. "It is truth." The guards shifted, but they did not fire. Instead, one of them stepped forward, his armor clinking softly with each step. He carried a weapon unlike any Ryan had seen, long and carved with markings that glowed faintly. He stopped in front of Ryan and spoke in a deep voice. "Our princess asks, yet you answer too easily. A spy can also speak smoothly. A thief can also claim noble purpose. Why should we believe a human who wanders into our sacred hall without fear?" Ryan turned his gaze from the guard back to the princess. "You do not need to believe my words," he said. "You will believe your own eyes when you see them. They are not my proof. They are yours." The princess inhaled sharply, as if struck by the force of his reply. She raised her hand slightly, and the guard stepped back, though his eyes still burned with suspicion. Ryan's body remained still, his voice calm, but inside his chest the storm of fear and doubt pressed hard. He knew one wrong breath could cost him his life. He knew one wrong step could close the chance of peace forever. Yet he also knew silence would not save him. Truth was his only shield. The princess circled him slowly, her eyes never leaving him. The sound of her steps echoed against the smooth floor. "You stand before me, unarmed, surrounded by my guard," she said. "And yet you do not kneel. Why?" Ryan looked at her steadily. "Because kneeling would not make my words more true. I respect your crown, but I do not hide my face. If I kneel, it will be for choice, not fear." The princess stopped behind him, and for a moment he could not see her face. He felt the weight of her gaze pressing against his back. The guards shifted again, uneasy at the boldness of his reply. Then she spoke, her voice softer now, almost a whisper. "You are not like the others I have met. You do not speak like a soldier. You do not tremble like a thief. Perhaps you are different." Ryan turned his head slightly, his voice steady. "I am only human. But sometimes that is enough." The words hung in the air. The princess did not answer at once. She returned to the front of the platform, her robe trailing behind her. She stood tall once more, looking down at him as her guards waited for her command. She raised her hand slowly. Ryan held his breath. Would she order his death, or his mercy? But then, at the very last moment, her gaze flicked past him again. For a second time, her eyes widened in disbelief. Her voice broke with a sound that none of the guards had ever heard from her, a cry not of command but of recognition. "By the stars," she whispered. "It cannot be." The guards turned their eyes toward the corridor. Ryan's heart pounded. He knew what they would see. And when two small voices called out again from behind him, the chamber no longer belonged to suspicion or anger. It belonged to shock, and to something far stronger. The alien princess no longer looked at Ryan as a trespasser. She looked at him as the one who had brought back what she thought lost forever. The chamber that had once been filled with sharp tension now turned to silence. Every guard froze. Every eye was fixed on the same sight. Two small figures stood in the open corridor behind Ryan. They looked fragile, their clothes worn, their hair tangled from days of wandering. But their eyes shone bright, carrying the same silver glow that marked the royal crown. The children stepped forward slowly, uncertain yet fearless, as if guided by something stronger than fear. Their tiny feet made no sound against the smooth floor. The princess's lips parted, her breath catching in disbelief. Her daughters. For so long she had believed them lost in the chaos of war, taken from her by fire and destruction. She had buried her hope deep inside, wearing strength on the outside while her heart remained broken. Yet now, before her eyes, they stood alive. The guards, who had kept their weapons trained on Ryan only moments ago, shifted uncertainly. They looked from the princess to the children, unsure of what to do. Their duty demanded vigilance, yet their hearts hesitated at the sight of innocence returned. Ryan did not move at first. He felt the weight of the moment pressing on his shoulders. Slowly, carefully, he turned his head to look behind him. The children gazed back at him with wide eyes, then took another small step forward. They trusted him. They always had. Through broken corridors and dark nights, they had followed his steady voice, his calm steps, and his promise that he would not leave them behind. Now, they stepped into the light of the chamber, into the sight of the mother they had been separated from. The princess's crown tilted as she moved forward, her steps trembling but swift. The guards instinctively began to follow, but she raised her hand sharply, and they froze where they stood. This was not a moment for blades or commands. This was a moment for a mother. Her voice cracked as she whispered their names. The sound echoed across the chamber like a fragile prayer. The children stopped. Their small faces lifted. Recognition bloomed slowly, as if memory stirred deep inside them. Then, like a dam breaking, they ran. Their tiny feet pattered across the floor, and in an instant they threw themselves into her arms. The princess fell to her knees to catch them, her robe spreading around her like waves. She held them close, her arms shaking, tears streaming down her face. The guards lowered their weapons at last. None dared break the moment. None spoke. Even armored soldiers, hardened by war, felt the weight of what they witnessed. Ryan stood still, watching quietly. Relief flooded through him. He had carried the children this far, unsure what awaited them. Now he saw them safe in the arms of their mother. His chest loosened, the tension inside him easing for the first time in days. The princess wept openly, her tears falling against the children's hair. She pressed her face to theirs, whispering words only they could hear. Her crown, once a symbol of authority, now seemed small compared to the strength of her embrace. Minutes passed, though to Ryan it felt like an eternity held in silence. At last, the princess lifted her gaze. Her eyes, once sharp and filled with suspicion, now looked at him with a storm of emotions: gratitude, confusion, and something that went beyond either. "You," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You brought them back to me." Ryan lowered his head respectfully. "I found them alone. I could not leave them. They trusted me. I only kept my word." The princess pulled her daughters closer, unwilling to let them go even for a second. But her eyes remained locked on Ryan. "Do you know what you have done? Do you know what this means?" Ryan shook his head slightly. "I only know that they are safe now. That is enough for me." The guards murmured again, their voices uncertain. Some looked at Ryan with respect, others with doubt. But none raised their weapons anymore. The chamber that had once felt like a trap now felt like a sanctuary. One of the guards stepped forward. His voice was careful, his tone questioning. "My princess, if this is truth, then the human has done what none of us could. Should we not grant him honor?" Another guard shook his head. "Or perhaps this is a trick. Perhaps he uses the children to gain trust." The princess silenced them with a single glance. Her authority returned, but it was tempered now with something gentler. She rose slowly to her feet, her daughters clinging to her robes. She looked at Ryan not as a trespasser but as a man who had carried hope through darkness. "Your name is Ryan," she said softly, recalling his introduction. "Ryan, you have done more for me than words can hold. You have returned the light of my heart. My daughters live because of you. And for that, my guards will not touch you." The chamber filled with the sound of armor shifting as the soldiers lowered their weapons completely. The glow of the crystals seemed warmer, brighter, as if the station itself had heard her decree. Ryan exhaled slowly, his body relaxing though his mind remained alert. He knew this was only the beginning. Trust was fragile, easily broken, and though he had saved the children, he was still human, still a stranger in their eyes. The princess moved closer, her daughters at her side. Her eyes met his with a question unspoken. "Tell me, human," she said at last. "How did you find them? How did they survive when so much was lost?" Ryan hesitated only for a breath before answering. "They were alone when I found them. Lost in the wreckage of a ruined ship. I gave them food, water, and shelter. We walked through shadows and dangers until we reached this place. I only did what I could." The princess studied him for a long time. Her daughters clung to her hands, their eyes never leaving Ryan. They remembered his steady voice guiding them through darkness. They remembered the warmth of his blanket on cold nights. They remembered his promise that he would not leave them. And in their gaze was trust. The princess saw it. She could not deny it. Whatever doubts she had, her daughter's eyes spoke the truth. At last, she nodded. "Then perhaps you are not like the others. Perhaps your people are not what I was told. Perhaps there is more to humanity than I believed." Ryan stood silently, his heart steady. He did not claim more than what he had done. He only bowed his head slightly, accepting her words without pride. The chamber settled into quiet again. The guards shifted back into their places, though their eyes still lingered on him with a mix of suspicion and respect. The children held their mother's hands, but their eyes glanced toward him, as if waiting for him to stay near. The princess drew a slow breath and looked around the chamber. The air felt lighter, though the weight of coming choices pressed heavily on all of them. She had her daughters back, but the presence of the human raised new questions. Questions that could not be answered yet. Still, for the first time in many years, she allowed herself to feel something she thought lost. Hope. The hall that once carried only suspicion now carried the sound of quiet breathing. The princess held her daughters close, unwilling to let them slip from her arms again. Her eyes stayed on Ryan, filled with emotions she could not name. Gratitude mixed with doubt, relief mixed with caution. The guards kept their distance, their hands still resting near their weapons, but they no longer aimed them at the human. For a long moment, no one spoke. The children broke the silence first. They turned toward their mother and spoke in hurried voices, telling her how Ryan had found them among broken metal and fire. Their words were simple, yet they painted a picture of dark tunnels, nights without food, and danger that came from both machines and strange creatures roaming the wreckage. The princess listened with tears in her eyes, her hands trembling as she brushed the dirt from their faces. Every word the children spoke struck her heart. She had imagined their suffering countless times, but to hear it from their own mouths was almost too much to bear. When they finished, they pointed at Ryan. Their voices carried one truth above all others: he had never left them. He had walked every step beside them. He had carried them when they grew tired. He had given them food when his own pack was nearly empty. He had fought away the shadows that came too close. The princess looked at Ryan again. Her voice came low, heavy with emotion. "You speak truth. They would not defend you if it were not so." Ryan bowed his head slightly, his eyes steady. "I did what anyone should have done. They were alone. I could not walk away." The princess held her daughters tighter. For years she had believed their light was gone, stolen by war. She had buried her grief beneath duty and rule. Now the grief lifted, replaced with a fragile joy. Yet questions filled her mind. How had they survived? Why had fate placed them in the hands of a human? She rose slowly, guiding her daughters to stand with her. Her crown glimmered under the crystal lights as she faced Ryan. "You have returned what was taken from me," she said. "But I must know more. Tell me, how did you find them? What brought you here, to the place where even my own people feared to walk?" Ryan stepped forward slightly, careful to show respect. His voice carried the same calm strength as before. "I followed a faint signal," he said. "At first, I believed it was only a broken machine, but my ship traced it to the wreckage of a fallen vessel. There, I found the children. They were weak, but alive. I gave them food and water, and they trusted me. I could not leave them behind. So I searched for a safe place. That search led us here." The princess tilted her head, her eyes sharp. "And you never thought to use them as a shield for yourself? To bargain with their lives for your own gain?" Ryan shook his head firmly. "No. They were never mine to use. They are your daughters, not my tools. I gave them my word that I would protect them, and I keep my word." The guards exchanged looks among themselves. Some seemed moved by his answer, others remained wary. Trust was not won easily, not after years of conflict between their kind and humans. Yet the sight of the princess's daughters clinging to his memory could not be ignored. The princess's gaze softened slightly. "Few would have chosen as you did. Even among my people, there are those who would not risk their lives for children who were not their own. You are either a fool or something far rarer." Ryan allowed a faint smile. "Perhaps both." The children giggled softly, their small voices breaking the heavy air. They tugged at their mother's robe, urging her to believe. They told her how Ryan had fought through fire when the ship walls collapsed. How he had lifted them through a narrow gap when the doors refused to open. How he had given them the last of his water before taking a sip himself. Their words came quick and bright, spilling into the chamber like sunlight. The princess listened, her heart torn open by the truth she could no longer deny. Her daughters were alive because of this human. Her daughters trusted him more than they feared anything. That trust was proof stronger than any oath. Still, she could not forget the weight of her crown. She was not only a mother. She was a leader of her people, and every decision she made carried the future of her kingdom. Allowing a human into her trust could be seen as weakness. Yet casting him aside after what he had done would be dishonor beyond measure. She turned to her guards. "Lower your arms. This man is not to be harmed. He has carried my daughters to me. For that, he has my protection." The guards obeyed, though unease lingered in their eyes. Ryan exhaled slowly, though his stance did not relax. He knew danger had not passed. This was only a pause, a fragile bridge built between suspicion and trust. The princess stepped closer to him. Her daughters stayed by her side, but their hands reached toward him, as if afraid he might disappear. She looked into his eyes and spoke with quiet strength. "You have shown courage. You have shown honor. Yet you must understand, your presence here changes everything. My people will question why you were chosen to bring back what we lost. They will wonder if it is fate or trickery. And I must answer them." Ryan nodded. "I understand. Do what you must. I ask for nothing in return. I only wished for them to be safe." Her gaze lingered on him, reading him as if she could see through every layer of his being. At last, she spoke again, her voice softer, almost tender. "Then know this. Whatever my people say, whatever storms may come, I will not forget. You returned my daughters when I had lost all hope. That truth cannot be erased." The children smiled at her words, and one of them turned to Ryan with a bright laugh. "You see, we told you she would believe." Ryan's lips curved slightly, his first true smile since stepping into the chamber. The princess bent down, pressing her forehead against her daughters as she whispered a vow only they could hear. She had lost them once. She would never lose them again. The guards stood in silence, watching. None dared disturb the moment. The hall that had begun as a place of judgment had now become a place of reunion. The weight of suspicion still lingered, but over it grew something stronger, an unspoken bond, fragile yet unbreakable. For the first time in a long while, the princess allowed herself to feel hope. And it had come not from her people, but from the hands of a human. The chamber had grown calm. The guards stood back, their weapons lowered, while the princess kept her daughters close. The glow of the crystal walls shone warmly now, no longer cold and sharp. Ryan stood quietly, his hands at his sides, watching the reunion with steady eyes. The children would not let go of their mother's robes, but even in her arms their eyes wandered toward him. They were not afraid of the guards or the hall. Their trust remained with the man who had guided them through darkness. That trust did not fade, even now that they had returned to the one they loved most. The princess noticed it. Her heart ached with pride for her daughters and with gratitude toward the human, yet her mind remained troubled. She was ruler of her people, bound to guard their traditions. Bringing a human into her trust would stir doubt and conflict among her council. Still, she could not deny what her daughter's eyes told her. They would not release their bond with him. She lifted her gaze to Ryan. Her voice was softer than before, though still careful. "Tell me again, human. Tell me how you found them, how you kept them safe. I must hear it from your own lips." Ryan nodded. He did not rush his words. His voice came steady and simple, carrying no pride, only truth. "I found them near the ruins of a broken vessel. They were alone, frightened, and weak. I gave them food and water. I told them they would not be left behind. They followed me because I promised to lead them to safety. Every step we took together. I only kept my word." The chamber stayed silent as his words sank in. The princess studied him with unblinking eyes, searching for falsehood. But the children clutched her hands tightly and nodded, confirming every part of his tale. One of the guards finally spoke, his voice low. "Princess, if this is truth, then the human has risked his life for what we could not save. His path was not of war but of protection. Perhaps he is different." Another guard shook his head. "Or perhaps he hides his purpose. Humans have deceived before. A single act does not erase old scars. The princess silenced them both with a glance. Her daughters tugged gently at her hand, their eyes pleading, their voices soft. He is good. He never left us. He never lied. He is our friend. Those simple words struck deeper than any argument. The princess felt her resolve bend. She could not deny her daughter's truth. Children did not see politics or history. They saw only hearts. She turned to Ryan once more. You understand what you have done? By saving them, you have tied yourself to me. To my people. Their lives are bound to mine, and now, in some way, yours is as well. Ryan bowed his head slightly. I did not seek to bind myself to anyone. I only wished for them to live. That is all. Her lips curved faintly, the shadow of a smile though her eyes remained firm. Yet here you stand, alive before me, carrying a truth that will change much. Whether you wished it or not, you are now part of something greater. The guards murmured among themselves again, but none raised their weapons. Suspicion still lingered, but it was weaker now, shaken by what they had seen. The princess motioned for her daughters to sit beside her. She guided them gently toward the platform, where she sat upon a carved throne of crystal and stone. The children clung to her arms, their eyes bright with relief. Then she raised her head, her gaze falling on Ryan. Come closer, she said. Ryan hesitated, but only for a moment. He walked forward slowly, each step echoing against the floor. The guards shifted uneasily but did not stop him. When he stood before the platform, he looked up at the princess, his posture calm and respectful. She studied him in silence, as if weighing his soul against the weight of her crown. At last, she spoke. You call yourself Ryan. You are human, a people who have not always walked in peace with us. Yet you did not run from danger. You carried my daughters when even my strongest guards could not find them. Tell me, why did you do this? Why risk your life for children who were not your own? Ryan's reply came without hesitation. Because they were alone. Because no one else was there. Because no child should suffer if there is someone who can protect them. I did what I knew was right. Nothing more. The chamber grew quiet again. Even the guards who doubted him felt the strength of his words. He did not claim heroism. He did not ask for reward. His truth was simple, and in its simplicity lay its power. The princess leaned back slightly, her daughters resting against her. Her voice lowered, almost tender. In all my years of rule, few have spoken so simply yet carried such weight. You have shown me something rare, Ryan. You have shown me that humanity may hold more than I believed. Her daughters turned toward him and smiled. Their laughter, light and free, echoed across the hall, breaking the last of the tension. Even the guards softened at the sound. Ryan allowed himself a faint smile in return. He did not speak, for there was nothing more to say. His actions had spoken already. The princess looked around the chamber, her mind heavy with thoughts of what must come next. She knew her council would demand answers. She knew many would fear or distrust the human. But she also knew that no words of doubt could erase the truth of what he had done. He had returned her daughters. He had kept his promise. And in doing so, he had planted a seed of trust where none had been before. She stood, her daughters rising with her. She looked down at Ryan with calm authority. From this day, you will not be harmed in this place. You are under my protection. Any hand raised against you will answer to me. The guards bowed their heads, accepting her command though some did so with hesitation. Ryan bowed slightly in return. His heart remained steady. He had not sought honor, yet it had found him. He had not sought trust, yet he had earned it. The princess drew her daughters close again. She whispered softly, more to herself than to anyone else. Hope lives still, carried by unexpected hands. The hall stood silent once more, but this silence was no longer heavy with threat. It was filled with something new, something fragile yet unbroken. The crystal chamber no longer felt like a prison. The air was lighter now, filled with the laughter of children and the quiet murmur of guards who no longer held their weapons ready. The princess sat tall upon the platform, her daughters at her side, but her eyes never left Ryan. He stood steady, silent, watching with calm respect. The moment of reunion had passed, but now a new weight fell upon the hall. The future had to be shaped. The princess rose slowly, her robe sweeping across the floor. Her crown shimmered softly as she walked down from the platform. Every guard straightened at her movement, their eyes following her. She stopped only a few steps away from Ryan. "Human," she said, her voice clear, "you have brought me back what I thought lost forever. For that, I will not forget. But know this, your actions have placed you within the eyes of my people. They will demand answers. They will ask why a human walks among us in my protection." Ryan bowed his head slightly. "I understand. I did not seek to cause trouble. My only purpose was their safety." The princess studied him carefully. Her eyes were sharp again, but no longer filled with suspicion. Instead, they held curiosity and a quiet respect. "Safety you gave. Yet safety alone does not explain why you risked yourself when you had nothing to gain. Tell me, Ryan, what drives you to such choices?" Ryan lifted his head, his voice calm. "Because life matters. Because no one should be left behind if there is someone who can help. I do not see crowns or bloodlines when I see a child in need. I see only life that deserves to continue. That was enough for me." The princess's lips pressed together, her face unreadable, but inside her heart trembled. His words touched something deep. She had seen warriors, leaders, and rulers speak of duty, but rarely had she heard someone speak so simply. The children broke into the silence. They ran forward and clutched at Ryan's hands, smiling up at him. "He is telling the truth. He promised us he would not leave us, and he never did." The guards shifted again, some uneasy, others thoughtful. Even the hardest among them could not deny the purity of the children's trust. The princess stepped back slightly, her daughters returning to her side. She turned to her guards. "You have seen with your own eyes. This human has done what even our strongest failed to do. He has protected what we value most. From this day, he will walk under my protection. He is not an enemy. He is an ally." The hall filled with murmurs. Some guards bowed their heads in acceptance. Others clenched their fists, unhappy but unwilling to defy her command. The princess's word was law. Ryan remained silent. He felt the weight of what had just been declared. An ally. He had not asked for such a role, yet it had been given to him. He understood the danger it carried. To be trusted by the crown meant to be watched by all. The princess turned back to him. "This is not the end. It is the beginning. If you are to remain here, you must walk among my people. You must show them what you have shown me. They will judge you not by my words but by your actions." Ryan nodded. "Then I will continue as I have before. I will not claim more than what I am. I am human. But I will do what I can." Her daughters smiled brightly, their small voices echoing. "Then he stays with us." The princess allowed herself a faint smile at their words. She placed her hands gently upon their heads. Yes, for now, he stays. She turned once more to the guards. Prepare the halls. Call the council. Word will spread of this meeting, and I will not hide the truth. Let them know that my daughters live, and that a human returned them to me. The guards bowed as one, their voices answering together, as you command. Then they moved quickly, their armor ringing softly as they left the chamber. Only the princess, her daughters, and Ryan remained. The hall grew quiet again. The princess looked at him, her tone gentler now. You have crossed a line few have dared. In doing so, you have tied yourself to the future of my people. I cannot say what storms will follow, but know this, Ryan. You will not walk them alone. Ryan inclined his head. I will face whatever comes. I do not fear storms. The princess studied him for a moment longer. She saw no pride in his voice, no hidden motive. Only steady resolve. Her daughters leaned against her, their eyes heavy with sleep after the long ordeal. She brushed their hair softly and then spoke again. You have earned their trust, and now you have earned mine. In time, you may also earn the trust of my council. Until then, you will remain close. You will walk under my watch, and I will see with my own eyes the truth of your heart. Ryan agreed with a calm nod. That is fair. The children yawned softly, their laughter fading into tired smiles. The princess lifted them gently into her arms, carrying them with the care of a mother who would never lose them again. As she moved toward the platform, she looked back at Ryan once more. Know this, human. My people may not yet see you as friend. But I do. And in this hall, my word is enough. Ryan bowed his head again, his heart steady. He had not come seeking honor, yet he had gained something greater than any title. He had gained trust. The princess sat upon her throne, her daughters resting against her shoulders, their small breaths slow and even as they drifted into sleep. She watched them with a smile that no crown could hide. Then she raised her gaze toward Ryan once more. You carried hope through fire, she said softly. Now you will carry it through shadows. Together, we will see if this hope can live. The crystals glowed brighter around them, as if the station itself had heard her words. Ryan stood tall, calm, and silent. He understood. This was more than survival now. This was alliance. A fragile bridge between two worlds. And he had been chosen to stand upon it. For the first time in a long while, he felt not like a wanderer, but like a man with purpose. The next day began with echoes of movement across the alien station. Guards marched through the crystal halls, servants carried messages, and the sound of distant machinery hummed through the walls. Word of the princess's daughters had spread quickly. Hope that had been silent for years now moved like fire through her people. Ryan stood at the edge of a wide balcony carved into the station's structure. Beyond it stretched the endless stars, sharp and bright against the black. He watched in silence, feeling the weight of all that had changed. Only days ago, he had wandered alone, unsure of where he would end up. Now, he was tied to a people who barely knew him. Behind him came the soft steps of the princess. She walked with grace, her robe flowing like water, her crown catching the light. Her daughters ran ahead of her, laughing as they reached Ryan and clutched his arms. They spoke in their small voices, telling him how they wanted to see the stars closer, how they wanted to travel again, but only if he came with them. Ryan smiled faintly, listening with patience. The princess stood nearby, her eyes soft as she watched her daughters find joy again. You have changed much in their hearts, she said quietly. They speak of journeys and safety, but always with your name tied to it. You are no longer just the human who found them. You are their shield. Ryan shook his head slightly. I was only someone who walked with them when they needed it most. That does not make me more than I am. The princess stepped closer, her gaze sharp yet kind. Humility may be your way, but do not mistake it for truth. You carried them when no one else could. You gave them hope when all they knew was fear. That will never fade, no matter how simple you believe yourself to be. Her words hung in the air, heavier than the silence of space beyond the balcony. Ryan did not argue. He had learned that some truths did not need answers. Moments later, a guard arrived, bowing deeply before the princess. The council has gathered, my lady. They await your word. The princess nodded and turned to her daughters. Stay with him, she said softly. I will return when the council has heard me. The children clung to her arms for a moment, reluctant to let go, but she calmed them with gentle words. They returned to Ryan's side, and she walked away with her guards, her robe trailing across the polished floor. Ryan looked down at the two small faces watching him. Your mother is strong, he said softly. She will guide her people well. The older child shook her head. She will guide them, but she needs you too. I can see it. Ryan did not answer. Instead, he guided them back inside the hall, where soft lights glowed against crystal walls. The council chamber was far grander than the hall he had first entered. Carved pillars rose high, and the air shimmered with the sound of voices as leaders gathered. The princess stood in the center, her daughters absent, her guards lining the walls. When silence finally fell, she lifted her voice. My daughters live. They stand under my protection once more, and their return was not my doing. It was the act of a human who carried them through danger and delivered them to me. The council stirred with mixed reactions. Some nodded in respect. Others frowned with doubt. One elder rose from his seat. A human has done what even our fleets could not. That may be worthy of respect. But does it mean he should walk freely among us? He is not one of us. His kind has not fought our wars or bled for our survival. Why should we open our arms now? The princess answered firmly. Because courage does not belong to one people alone. Because trust must begin with a choice, and I choose to honor what has been done. He is not one of us, but he stood as if he were. If we turn away such truth, then what hope remains for us? Another council member spoke, his tone softer. And if this human is only one? What then? His act may be noble, but his kind may not all be the same. The princess's voice rang clear. Then let this one be proof that his kind can be more. Let this one stand as the bridge. If we do not trust at least once, then we may never trust at all. The chamber fell silent. No one spoke for a long while. Finally, the elder who had spoken first lowered his head. Very well. Let it be as you command. The decision was made. The princess had spoken, and her word carried the weight of law. Later, when she returned to her daughters and to Ryan, there was no crown upon her head, only the gentle smile of a mother who had won something far greater than a council's approval. You stood without a word, she said to Ryan. You let the truth speak for itself. That is strength greater than any blade. Ryan answered quietly. It was never about me. It was about them, and about you. The children hugged their mother, then hugged him. Their laughter filled the chamber again, washing away the heavy air of politics and duty. The princess lifted her eyes to the stars beyond the balcony. There will be storms yet. My people will test you, and the stars will bring trials neither of us can see. But for now, there is peace. For now, there is trust. Ryan stood beside her, the children between them. He looked out at the stars as well. Then we will face what comes. Together. And in that moment, the chamber was quiet except for the gentle sound of children's laughter. The princess, her daughters, and the human who had carried hope through fire stood together as more than strangers. They were a promise, a sign that worlds divided could still find unity. The station lights glowed softly, as if carrying the memory of what had happened within its walls. Far beyond, the stars burned bright, waiting for the journeys yet to come.